Hello, BookTube. I got some rancorous feedback from one of my videos yesterday for BookTube-a-Thon from one of the least likely sources imaginable. I went to lunch today in a dining room on Beacon Hill here in Boston. I had lunch with some old friends of mine who work in the State House, and they read me the riot act about my Boston Common video. Not for the reasons, the virtue signaling, hand-waving reasons that a couple of people have raised about the video itself, but rather for reasons that I didn't see coming. First of all, I didn't know these people watched my channel. And they do, and they said, you got a few thousand people watching your videos, and you're describing Boston as a cesspool. Why are you doing that? It's July. We need these tourist dollars. And you know, looking back on the video, I realized they were right. I was afraid that video would give that impression, that it would be too crabby about the city I love more than any place in the world. I told them, you're right. You're absolutely right. I don't want to give people the wrong impression, especially if they're thinking about sinking a week into coming to Boston. So I'll go back to the Common, and I'll make another video today, and it will be much more positive. that softened them. It ameliorated them a bit. Either that or it was the wine at lunch. And we parted ways, and I came back down the Common and was fully intent on making another video when I ran across a middle-aged couple studying the ground as they walked along and waving guidebooks written in German. And I said to them, what on earth are you doing? And they explained that they were following the Freedom Trail, but what they were following was simply a brick seam on the sidewalk. And had they followed it to its conclusion, they would have ended up in the North End for overpriced pasta somewhere. I informed them, this is not the Freedom Trail. I know it's not well marked, it's virtually indistinguishable from the real thing, but still, it's not. And right over there is the visitor center, and you should go over there, and they will see to you. They will make sure that you're well cared for. I said to them, on behalf of Boston, I apologize for how poorly we take care of our tourists. And they thought that was funny, and we laughed a bit, and we talked for a bit more. I considered that my duty for Boston Common and for Boston tourism. That and this video. But the Common was just mobbed with people, and it just didn't seem any more conducive to a happy video than yesterday did. And on top of that, the second video that I made yesterday, when I came right here to Forest Hill Cemetery, surprised me by how much it gut punched me. How painful it was to come here. All I could think about when I was here was all the times, countless times, hundreds of times, where I came here with my two dogs when they were 5 and 4 years old, when they were made of rubber, when it was not possible to exhaust them, and where everything interested them. And yesterday, when I was here and I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the fact that only hours earlier that morning, I'd had to hold up my one remaining dog and keep her stable while she defecated. And the process of being held up while she defecated bothered her, and being outside and being that vulnerable terrified her. All she wanted to do was come back inside, lay down, and go to sleep, preferably with my arm draped over her. And that is unrecognizable to the dog that was once here. But the strength of that gut punch bothered me, because I have been everywhere in Boston, with many, many, many dogs. many dogs, long before those two dogs existed, long before their parents existed. If I let such gut punches rule me, there wouldn't be anywhere I could go, ever, in the whole greater metropolitan area. So I decided to come back here to Forest Hill Cemetery, even though it's not part of BookTube-a-Thon Day 6. BookTube-a-Thon Day 6's challenge is to read a book that you bought solely for the cover. And I showed a book, a Regency romance, when I did my TBR. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't buy that book just for its cover. I don't know that I've ever bought a book just for its cover. I bought that book because it had a nice cover, yes, but I bought it because it was slotted into a genre and a time period that I like. It was by an author whose work I know. It had a lot going for it. It had a lot of factors involved other than the cover. And if it hadn't had those factors, the cover wouldn't have done the job. So I thought I would cheat a little. And instead of doing that book, I mean, if I haven't done 10-minute BookTube reviews of serious works that I love. I'm not going to do one for a Regency Romance. It took me an hour to read. But I went to the Brattle again, just to chat and also to do a little shopping. And I found 2 books with covers, as books tend to have. And I thought I would just talk about those instead, especially as the first one is a pendant. It's something that it's a companion to something we've seen on this channel before. And this is Henry James in Italy. This lovely thing that has a, it's not Canaletto on the cover, but it's still a pretty painting. And it's a collection of all the reporting and occasional pieces that he did for The Nation and for the Atlantic Monthly about trips that he made to Italy. Not just Venice, although the bulk of it is Venice, but also everywhere else. He would go, he would write up, he would send off the dispatch, and he would complain about the food. And like the earlier volume I got was English Hours, him in England. This one also has it's just full of gorgeous black and white sketches and full color painting reproductions. Just the best volume to have of Henry James's Italian writings. And like with the English volume, the only version I had before that was a crappy little mass market paperback that would never stand a second reading, whereas this thing will. So there's that. And I also got another book that has an evocative cover, and I didn't buy it for that reason, but I'm glad that it has an evocative cover, and I'm glad that it has the cover that it does. It's The Woman at the Washington Zoo, a collection of political writings by Marjorie Williams. It's got a peacock on a balustrade, so you've got beauty, even though paradoxically it's masculine beauty, and the sort of official impediments of power. And I like that because it's a perfect combination to go with this author. She was a political columnist in the 1990s. That was when she hit her prominence, was in the 1990s. She was also, for a time, the power behind the Book of the Month Club, and she was an indefatigable reader, so that was very good. It was a match made in heaven. It's too bad that it didn't fit with her schedule. But she used to write columns for the Washington Post all the time about the politics of the day, mostly the 1990s, mostly Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush and Hillary Clinton and Al Gore and all these names from what seems like a distant past. And she was great about them, absolutely great about them. Never drew attention to herself the way so many other Washington beat reporters did. She did a great piece, for instance, on Barbara Bush, in which at one point she asks, well, if the First Lady put so much effort into characterizing herself as just a simple, plain-spoken woman who loves to deprecate herself, why is everyone in Washington so afraid of her? And she goes on to dissect that fear, and it takes the reader a minute, even now, to realize that she's writing the piece. She's not afraid. And that was the way that she was. All of her pieces are just fantastic. They don't date the way a lot of political writing you'd think would. And I knew her a little bit. And I used to say to her, if you collect these things into a book, I'll cheer it from the rooftops. And she said, oh, you're going to cheer it from the rooftops? From an information desk at a bookstore? Do me a favor. Get back into book reviewing. Then cheer it from the rooftops. I didn't do that. But the book never materialized anyway. And then she drifted away from political writing. She drifted more towards genuine essays, personal essays, that sort of thing. And then she received a cancer diagnosis. And it was the same thing. She shifted gears completely. Like all natural writers, she decided, well, fate has handed me the mother of all subjects. I can't ignore it. It's my whole life now, but I can't stop writing. So I will write yet another cancer memoir. People do it, and people mock it all the time. Judy Diskey did it. Christopher Hitchens did it. They get that sentence from a well-meaning hospital functionary behind a desk who says to them, here's your new reality. And they can't go to work anymore. They can't do what they used to do, but they can't stop writing. It's who they are. So they just write on that subject, and she did for a while. The last part of this book is about that, and it is heart-wrenching. It is as gorgeous a collection of stuff as anything she wrote. And I hate to say that because I could say it about a handful of writers, and in all cases I would gladly surrender the prose to have the person back. But I wanted to read you one part. I promise not to read too much. I wanted to read you one part from the last piece in this collection. Just beautiful. She's already received her diagnosis, and she's helping her little girl, Alice, dress for Halloween. And Alice has decided to dress as a teenager. Her costume will be a teenager. And her mother helps her with the teenage makeup and the hairdos and the shoes, the ridiculous shoes that don't fit a little girl at all. And then she has a perfect Marjorie Williams insight about it. I want to read you. We could hear her friends pull up to the curb. As her momentum carried her to the top of the stairs, Alice looked back and tossed me a radiant smile. She had become my glimmering girl. She looked like a rock star. She looked like a teenager. She looked absolutely stunning. She thundered down the stairs in those shoes, and as the front door slammed behind her, it came to me. What fantasy I had finally, easily entered into this Halloween. I had just seen Alice leave for her prom. For her first real date. I cheated time, flipping the calendar 5 or 6 years into the future. The character I'd played was the 52-year-old mother I will probably never be. It was effortless. That was written in November of 2004, and the postscript right below it says, a month after Marjorie wrote this, her oncologist concluded that there were no further treatments to recommend. She died at home in January of 2005, 3 days after her 47th birthday. And that's probably the wrong note to end a discussion of this book on, because she wouldn't have liked it. The book is vibrantly alive. It's full of fully engaged political reporting with a genteel literary flair that is all but missing from today's literary atmosphere, and especially political atmosphere. So of course there's a part of me that really, really wishes that Marjorie Williams were still here and still at the Post and still writing about Washington. We need her. We need her voice really badly. We need all these people's voices really badly. But at least we got the book. I guess that's kind of bittersweet, but it also blows apart my rationale for coming here. I came back here specifically to lance this boil, specifically to make Forest Hills an acceptable place where I could come and talk to you. I guess this is partly on the way to that, but in the meantime, I'm going to count this as BookTube-a-Thon Day 6, because both of these books have covers, and both of the covers are attractive. I maintain that I would not have bought them or anything else just for the cover, but I wholeheartedly recommend this book, The Woman at the Washington Zoo, not only as a time capsule of a political period in U.S. history that, looking back on it, I now realize was incredibly tranquil, but also as a volume of the writings of a wonderful woman, a wonderful writer, a first-class observer of the human mind. And just to try to bring this around to a more positive note, I got this for $1 at the Brattle, even though I already have it. So I'm perfectly happy to send it to one of you if this is up your alley. So just let me know in the comments. And that's it for now. I will sign off with a recommendation from Marjorie Williams, and also with one other recommendation, which is for the hub of the universe, for my beloved Beantown. It is not a cesspool full of needy dogs and rude panhandlers. It is actually a wonderful place to visit, so feel free to do so. And I'll be back soon. Thank you, BookTube.